Hi, it's Charlie Minato from halfwheel.com, and I am back with another humidor review, this time from a company that you've probably never heard of. It's called the WIAEE. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's spelled W-I-A-E-E. I don't know how to get in contact with the company, and that's because, quite frankly, I'm unsure if they are still around. I would love to refer this as something other than the humidor, but it was listed on Amazon as Cigar Humidor Spanish Cedar Cigar Box Humidor for 150 large, ensuring optimal smoking enjoyment, high-graded hygrometer, and Valentine's Day gift for men. So I'm going to call it the humidor, and we're just going to go with that. We purchased this humidor in January 2023 for $179.99 from Amazon, and now I'm going to bring out a prop. This is the Savoy Executive Humidor from Ashton, one of my favorite humidors. And these two humidors are both desktop humidors. They both do the same thing at the end of the day. They store your cigars and help keep them in optimal smoking condition. Now, this is a wooden traditional desktop humidor. And these days, most wooden humidors are made from a combination of wood, wooden veneers, and MDF. And the shell of this humidor is made from acrylic, which is plastic. Now, acrylic humidors are not new. They have been around longer than I've been smoking cigars. But over the last decade, they've gotten a lot more popular, and that is, I think, due to two things. Number one, Boveda, which brought acrylic humidors to the masses here in the US. And two, I think that the rise of smoking in mainland China has something to do with it, and this humidor is from China. Now, the most unique part about acrylic is what you can see, which is that it's see-through. And it's very different than a wooden humidor, even a wooden humidor with a glass top lid, because this means you can see all the way around. And quite frankly, even on top, you can see into the humidor, and even on the bottom, though that would be difficult for me to show in this setup. So that's unique in and of itself, but what drew me to this particular model over any other model from company I've never heard of is the format. So this is what I would call a shoebox style humidor. It's a wide rectangle with a lid up top, and it opens like this, and typically there's a hinge back here. This is a cabinet style humidor, which we typically see as like floor standing, big humidors. This is not that large. It is 10 inches from here to here, 10 1/4 inches deep from here to here, and a little over 13.5 inches tall from here to here on the outside. But it has a door like those big floor standing humidors do, and that allows you to open it up and take out these drawers that hold cigars. There are 3 of them. They're the same size. They come back into the humidor pretty easily, and then the door closes like this. 4 magnets here to help keep this door from swinging open when you don't want it to be. And that's basically how the WIAEE, still don't know how to pronounce it, that's how this thing works. Now, in terms of what the humidor comes with, not much. You get the 3 included shelves, trays, whatever you want to call them, but there's like no dividers inside of it. It does come with a digital hygrometer. It's got a finger hole in the back of, like, it's got like a little perch that it sits on. And there's a finger hole back there if you want to replace the battery or when you need to replace the battery. I would ignore that. Just take the shelves out, flip the thing upside down. The digital hygrometer will come out easy enough, and you can replace the watch battery inside. For our American viewers, the larger issue there might be that I couldn't figure out a way to get it to display in Fahrenheit, so hope you know your Celsius. That's it. There's no included humidification packets, no lock and key, no ashtray, Bluetooth speaker, like the trays, the digital hygrometer, and the box itself. And that's perfectly fine with me. I will say my favorite acrylic humidors tend to be the ones that are all acrylic. Would prefer these trays, shelves to be acrylic. And there are a couple reasons why. I think that it looks a lot more interesting because you can see like behind the cigars and even underneath the cigars. But also it means that you don't have to season the humidor or worry about any of the other things that go along with having these wooden trays. And this humidor definitely needed seasoning. So that takes me to the Half-Wheel humidor testing process. I have a standardized testing process I use here at Half-Wheel. You can read more about this and more about some other insights into this humidor on halfwheel.com, where there's a written review with a bunch of pictures and things like that. But I'll go over the highlights here. I did do seasoning. It's 2 weeks of having 84% humidity packs inside of it. The results were that it definitely needed the seasoning. I used something called a moisture meter, which can probe the wood, and it tells me how much moisture or water content is in the wood itself. And looking at those numbers from before and after the seasoning process, there definitely was a difference. In some cases, the moisture content doubled after the seasoning process. So the wood was a little dry and needed some of that. The next part of the process is a 13-week Boveda test. So I take out the seasoning packs and replace them with standard 69% packs and close the door, no cigars inside. Leave the humidor alone for 13 weeks. The results here, while the graph looks a little funky up front, were awesome. This is another acrylic humidor that did really well, especially after the first week of that 13-week test. For the other 12 weeks, and quite frankly, it was like 12 and a half weeks, Less than 2% relative humidity range from the lowest to the highest readout. It's absolutely awesome results. Like, this is as good as it's going to get, and is going to outperform basically any wooden humidor you could possibly buy. The next part of the test would be a test of the included humidification system as opposed to the Boveda, but again, no included humidification here. So I move on to the final part of the test, which is when I stick this thing inside of a dry cabinet, and so I can control the ambient humidity, so the humidity outside of the humidor, to measure the seal and to see if there's leakage problems. In this case, the humidor did excellent. Again, less than a 2% relative humidity range, like just quite simply, as good as it's going to get. So on to the pros and the cons. I'm going to start with the good stuff, and I'll start with talking about what I was just talking about. Number one is the performance. This thing, when it comes to keeping the humidity inside at a particular range, does about as good a job as any humidor I've ever seen. So much so, I don't think it's worth me talking about that anymore. So I'm going to move on to number two, and that is the space utilization. In particular, it has to do with the thickness of this wall, or these walls. So one of the advantages of the acrylic is that these walls can be a lot thinner than the shell that you see for a wooden humidor. In this case, this is a little less than 1/3 of an inch thick, and then you have to add in the tray because you do lose some space there. But even combined, it's a little over a 1/2 inch thick. That Ashton humidor, it's almost an inch thick. And so what that means is that you can just fit more cigars inside of this shell than you can with a traditional wooden humidor. And all that space adds up. It's like, oh, it's only like a 1/2 inch here on this side. But it's a 1/2 inch here, it's a 1/2 inch up front, it's a 1/2 inch up top, a 1/2 inch on this side, a 1/2 inch on the back, 1/2 inch on the bottom. It makes a big, big difference when it comes to how many cigars you can store. And in case you're wondering, advertises 150 cigars. I could easily put 160 Toros, and if I want to talk about Robustos and Coronas, might be able to push 200, but easily get 50 plus Toros in one of these trays without having to do full-on Tetris. Number three, somewhat related. I did think about the appearance because it is unique, and I do like it to some degree, but I ultimately went with the format. I like this large desktop but cabinet option better than that shoebox style that you traditionally see. And the reason is it's just easier to organize. You could divide these trays up so that they're different countries. You could divide it up by brand, by strength level, by size, however you want to do it, as opposed to the shoebox style, where even if you get a tray, it's like, okay, I'm going to put my best 15 cigars on the tray, because that's what everyone does, and then underneath the tray is like 70 cigars just basically scattered. Maybe there's that one divider to help keep things divided. But if you want to go looking for cigars, I just think this is a much easier way to divide them and organize them and then find them, which is an important thing and does help to reduce damage. So on to the bad stuff, and number one is a big one, which is that you can't buy this humidor right now, and it almost meant that I didn't review it, because I wondered, like, what's the point of reviewing a product that you can't buy? But then again, Halfwheel's history is full of that. So currently not for sale. I suspect, just sort of knowing how these things work, at some point, someone else will be selling this humidor. Maybe they add a logo, or they change up the hygrometer, they do something, but that at some point it will reappear, probably under a different name, and maybe, I don't know, maybe WIAEE or whatever will see this and decide to keep selling humidors. But at the moment, you can't buy it. It can't buy it from Amazon. I went looking on some other places, didn't see any indication of it. Wouldn't surprise me to learn that it's currently for sale under some other name that I've never heard of, but I didn't see it. If you did, leave a comment and let us know where you can buy it. Number two is that there are pros and cons to see-through acrylic, and one of the cons is that you can see all of the imperfections. And from the distance the camera's at currently, you probably can't see very many of them. But if I had to point out all the imperfections, this review would be 5 or 10 minutes longer. They are all over the place. And the problem is that you can see them from all angles, and because it's see-through, it doesn't matter how small the imperfection is, it's visible. I did not have any issues with like dents or big cracks. Obviously, functionally, this humidor performed awesome. But if you read the reviews on Amazon, there are some people who said that they had those issues. But there are, I mean, like just the side here. There's an inch-long imperfection here, another one right below that. There's a big crack here. The like entire wall down here looks like there's maybe like glue, residual glue or something. It's an issue. It's not just an issue with this particular humidor or this particular brand. I've talked to other companies that sell acrylic humidors, and they have told me that one of the big issues is that because it's see-through, there is literally nowhere for these imperfections to hide. And many of these imperfections, these little small cracks, are probably present on the wooden humidors, but you just can't see through the veneers or the shells, so you have no idea. But here you are definitely the wiser, and it's ugly. Like, it doesn't look great. I would not put this as like a display humidor because of that. The third issue is a much more practical one, and it's that this humidor stunk when it showed up. It had a very, very strong smell. don't really know how to describe it. My recollection is that it was mostly from the wood and not actually from the acrylic itself. But it took more than 6 months before the smell went away. Now, I did not like put newspaper inside of it or clean out the acrylic. I just let it naturally disappear with the door open, right? But it is something to be wary of, especially when you're buying a humidor from a brand you've never heard of and on Amazon or eBay or whatever, and not from your local cigar shop, where they're likely to be selling humidors from companies that are a bit more aware that this is an issue. It's not just this particular model that smells. I've had other humidors that do it, but there are some companies that try to do things to mitigate that. This didn't happen here, and obviously, if I was a consumer and like bought this humidor ready to put a bunch of cigars inside of it, and then I had to wait months before the smell went away, that would be very, very annoying. So on the written review, we end with this question: should you buy it? Yes. Can you buy it? No. End of review, right? Not really, but more or less. So here's the deal. If you can find this humidor for sale, which I currently cannot, and it's from a place that has a decent enough return policy to where if the thing shows up with a giant crack or the door's fallen off, you can return it and get your money back or get a brand new unit, replacement one. Go for it. At $180, it's a no-brainer. At $200, $250, easy. $300, still would recommend it. At $400, there are some mid-luxury humidors that I think, really would be worthwhile competitors. But again, it was not a $400 humidor. It was $180. And for that, like, it's awesome. The performance was great. So long as you're not OCD about all these little cracks and imperfections in the acrylic, it's awesome. Organizationally, much better than a traditional shoebox-style humidor. And it's still, with all the cracks, it's still a bit more of a conversation piece than your typical sub-$200 humidor is ever going to be. If you'd like to read about some of the sub-$200 humidors, I reviewed a whole bunch of them way back when. You can check out halfwheel.com, where we review other cigar accessories like lighters, cutters, ashtrays, some other things, as well as cigars on a near daily basis. And we write about the cigar industry and all that's happening, new cigars, legislation, price increases, all sorts of things on halfwheel.com. Hi everyone, it's Charlie Minato from halfwheel.com, and this is the WIAEE acrylic cigar humidor. I actually don't know what this product's called or how to pronounce it is actually the better way. I don't